Something's happening in India, where a widespread, nonchalant attitude towards sexual violence has been exposed. It started with last month's gang rape and murder of a student. Then the outrage became a national crisis. What was seen as a woman's issue is now everyone's issue. People are talking, and not just about changing the laws, but also the attitude. Nahlah Ayed has our special report tonight from New Delhi.
Night in New Delhi is a time and place most women here work hard to avoid. It's a daily race to get ahead of the dangers that come with the dark. So for many women, each day must begin knowing how they'll get home safely. They must also contend with the daytime threats, especially when on the move. That's why strategy is key to every one of Faiza Mukherjee's metro journeys to and from university.
Usually in the mornings I go to the last compartment because it's empty-ish and I always end up getting a seat.
New Delhi station.
It's either when there are too many people or if it's completely empty, the metro, that's really scary as well because anyone can just walk towards you and who's going to really come and help when it's completely empty. But yeah, like there are sometimes you're standing there and you have no space. Like I'm that close to men around me. It's normal, but like you just have to be brave about it. You can't be weak in such situations because then you can't do anything. Like daily, you have to get on with life.
What's being taken away from you?
Walking confidently without getting, without being kind of searched with people's eyes and like just being looked at.
Almost every woman we ask says the same thing, that sexual harassment is endemic here, and so is rape. So much so they call New Delhi India's rape capital. It's all part of what activists call a wider, deep malaise where women are concerned that's rarely talked about until the woman they call India's daughter took a nighttime bus trip that may have changed everything. She'd boarded the bus with a male friend after watching a movie, and the horror that unfolded next was unspeakable. Both were beaten. She was raped for over 2 hours by as many as 6 men as the bus roamed freely on New Delhi streets. It was too grotesque and too close. It could have been any one of them. And so they, mostly youth, marched in the thousands demanding justice and better security on the streets. They also prayed India's daughter, who can't be named under the law, would live. 2 weeks later, she died, and a new movement was born. Why do you think that it touched a nerve?
One, because she was really brave and she was fighting for it. This issue is one thing that every woman in this country would feel for and agree with. So for the first time, there wasn't any political interference and all. There was nothing like that. It was just the masses with their own personal anger just, going and fighting for something that they experience every day.
Like the rest of the country, in New Delhi, old and new, tradition and modernity constantly chafe against each other. One associated with female feticide and dowry killings, the other with permitting women to get jobs and live alone. The gritty daily battle on the streets, though, is the leering, pinching, and so-called eve-teasing or harassment. And everyone's affected, though the poor tend to have less recourse.
नहीं जी, आपको बता तो रहे नहीं. नहीं है मैडम.
No, Delhi is not safe, she says. There's a crime happening in every house. We're constantly harassed. We can't sell our food in peace. She must live with the cruel hand she's been dealt, living anonymously with every woman's worst nightmare.
I met someone through a common friend and he invited me over for lunch.
She was reluctant, but he said he would drive, that there'd be others. She eventually agreed, but once home, they were alone.
He just started getting a bit close, and when I resisted, then he used force on me, and at some point I just had to give in because I was totally overpowered by the person.
At first, she didn't tell anyone she'd been raped. She was injured, and given the choices, she was also suicidal.
The society always blames the girl. More often than not, they point our fingers at the woman, saying that, she doesn't have, she's a loose character woman, and why did she go there? In India, virginity is such a big thing. If you lose it, then, you just don't have anything, that's the kind of attitude most of the people have here. So that's the reason why most of the women don't report.
She did eventually go to police, and yet 3 years on, her case is still in the notoriously slow courts.
Things like this happen so often here, and we just, you flip through the newspapers and you just see someone's raped here, someone's raped there. It's really common.
Government numbers indicate a woman is raped in India every 22 minutes. And like Mukherjee, you've got to try to avoid becoming a statistic. Some girls, like her friend, carry pepper spray.
You have to take certain precautions from before you don't go out late at night.
Even now, because despite the uproar, the rapes haven't stopped, and many put the blame directly on the Delhi police.
So how is Delhi at night?
No problem.
We had a chance to ride along with one patrol, and what we heard in the safety of that police vehicle seemed at odds with what we heard and saw outside.
You can see the lady. He's going. You can see. There is no fear.
But there is fear alongside the rage, and once Delhi police tuned into it, they promised more checkpoints, more female officers. This police official says they can do better, but he won't accept claims that some of his men believe the outdated idea that marriage can actually resolve a rape dispute. He then tries to explain why there aren't more women officers.
Unlike menfolk, women have to look after the children as well. So they would like to reach home by a particular time. I may, as a man, I may reach home very late, very assured that my wife is taking care of my kids.
It's the kind of thinking these youth believe is part of that old malaise they say still grips India. A formidable foe as they try to build their young movement.
Do you trust the police? Do you have faith in the police here in Delhi?
Actually, after this incident, no. They are actually not, helpful to us. And they do say, we met some of the women constables who were like, we also face this and we are with you, but we can't do anything because we don't have the authority and we don't have the power. So, if they don't have it, how can they give it to us?
How many of you actually experienced harassment?
I think in India, everybody
all of us.
But did something actually change?
We felt it, and everybody went out that enough is enough and we will not tolerate all of this anymore. We are in a process of evolution, and I think the movement is going to liberate us in a way, but then we do not know, but we have to keep it awake.
They're planning more protests this week to mark 1 month since India's daughter was attacked. The sympathetic among India's sons struggle with tough questions.
If there are 4 men who are teasing a girl, masculine tall man, so how can he go and say, what are you doing? He'll get scolded and he'll get raped. We can't change everybody. It takes generations. It takes generations.
But activist Kavita Krishnan says the protests were still a major breakthrough. Something really has changed, she says.
Major thing that has happened, which is so wonderful, is that gender has emerged as a central issue for political discussion, political debate.
The debate includes demands for changes to rape laws, but also voices which claim that respectable women don't get raped. All of it pales at the mention of an innocent university student gang raped and left to die.
No point did she or those close to her, talk about how she was at fault or they also, even in their great grief, they embraced her courage.
This rape survivor says she too has been inspired.
It could have been me or could have been anybody, and it's really unfortunate, but at the same time I'm happy that people now have come out.
For Mukherjee, nothing can yet pull away the anxiety or get her home safely.
There's not much the state and government can do. It's just our culture and our society it's just become like this. So you can't change. I mean, slowly. It's a very slow and hard and long process, but it's just you have to change the mindset of people. That's what's going to make the difference.
No woman wants to be the next nameless victim, but none want to be left behind either, day or night. Now, in India, could be the time and place to make sure no one is. Nahlah Ayed, CBC News, New Delhi.